Cool. That should be it. Tint Wisdom number 71. Tim, thanks for joining.
Hey, great to be here, man. Thanks so much for having me on.
So, Tim, just for anybody who doesn't know you or doesn't recognize you from your online profiles, you're one of the main men behind 44 Tools and the tint industry. That would be the most um, recognizable connection. And then you also do Tim's Enthusiast Garage, and you also have an auto spa as well that you manage. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. 44 Tools has been, probably is the thing that most people are most familiar with because I'm sort of the face of 44 Tools. When I came to 44 Tools about 4 years ago now, they were kind of looking for like really an identity, brand identity, and it was kind of fascinating to me because getting to know George and Bo, who were kind of like the founders of 44 Tools, fascinating guys. And George, in particular, who passed recently, was kind of at the forefront of the tent industry. You know, sort
Mhm.
of one of the first, in this area, the Midwest region, distributors for Lumar and that sort of thing, Eastman. And so I feel like, and I've talked to Pat Francisco about this, I feel like I really got a chance to learn from some of the most seasoned professionals. Like I feel like I kind of came in, I kind of skipped the ground floor. And so like my introduction to flat glass and my introduction to automotive tent was with people that had already been doing that for literally for
Long time.
decades.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so
44
so
Tools
so
goes
kind of
back.
a really fortunate situation.
44 Tools goes back, what, almost 15, 17 years?
17 years, 16, 17 years now, 18 years. Um,
Wow.
and again, started out. So 44 Tools started out as essentially as like a film delivery service. You know, they were the film distributor, and there was this need for. They were sort of there at the genesis of really tent tools. And I don't know how long you've been tenting. How long have you been tenting?
I've been in the tint world for about 10 years.
Okay,
10, 11.
so 18 years ago, 17 years ago, there wasn't really a lot of specific dedicated tools to window film. Yet you had, the window film industry was exploding and you had huge, skyscrapers getting, filmed and people were, sort of adapting mudding tools from like the drywall industry
Mhm.
and that sort of thing, or from automotive, like car painting and that sort of thing. So really, that ingenuity sort of led George to look for new innovative tools companies. There was a relationship forged with Olfa, which is sort of now Olfa, and companies like that are sort of synonymous with window tint.
Mhm.
At that time, they're really it was the sort of the genesis, the beginning of it. So yeah, and so 44 Tools, I think, in a lot of ways, has a unique place in the market in that they were there at the beginning, and we've sort of over the last I would say 5 years, so even a year or so before me, maybe 6 years, sort of have reinvented, sort of what that paradigm is, sort of how do we develop tools? How do we work with tool manufacturers like Fusion or Tri Edge or Lidco or any number of companies
Mhm.
to sort of better support tenters. And so that's really, kind of where I'm at with 44 Tools was, the tent industry is filled with really, whether I think tenters realize it or not, sort of like the OG original hustlers, the OG original entrepreneurs. Tenters are sort of like, we mentioned before we started talking here, it's sort of like the golden ticket. I mean, if you
Mhm.
can like film, there's sort of no limit. You're your own limit.
Right.
It's like, how creative are you? I mean, can you can only lay so much film yourself. Can you replicate yourself? Can you create another tenter? And then can you manage a shop and have 5 or 6 tenters working for you? Can you have a crew out doing flat glass and a crew, tinting dealer cars and that sort of thing? And so it's really, which leads to, the auto spa and guys like, Bo and even Bill Valway, who,
Mhm.
you know, these guys have started shops, but have sort of like Kevin Hart taking it to the next next level. You know, they're not happy with one movie; they want a franchise, and then they're not happy with a comedy tour; they want 12 comedy tours. And so that's really, I think, should, it's inspiring to me. I feel like I've come into this thing where it's like, what a fortunate place I find myself in. But truly, George was that innovator. And not to sort of ramble on, but I feel like in some ways, with our the videos we post on our Instagram and stuff like that, we are a true family-owned style business. I mean, we're all passionate, all car enthusiasts here, and so
Hmm.
it none of that is like pretense. It's all like legit. Like, here it is. We are the original sort of tent tool provider, and we're happy to still be one of the largest, if not the largest, tent tool providers. How can we get to know you better? How can we serve you better? So
Well, it's so much to talk about. To touch on a couple points you just made, as far as like authentically being car enthusiasts, there's no question about that. If you go to obviously your YouTube page, not 44 Tools, but if you go to Tim's Enthusiast Garage, I was watching some videos on there, and the car enthusiasm like pours out of your pore, like comes out of your pores. It,
yeah, yeah,
let
yeah.
it out. Like there's no question about the car enthusiasm. How many cars do you own?
So it varies. There's sort of the cars that stick around and the cars that are here to sort of make me a little bit more money so I can buy better cars later.
Mhm.
And so it hovers in the low 20s, 23 or 24. It's kind of ridiculous. The right number, honestly, the right number is 15. When you get over 15 cars, it kind of is too much. Like, I forgot I had that car, and
How
then
many set of keys do you have? For
yeah,
the,
lots of keys. We actually have a key box at my house. It's like a straight up dealer, key lock box, just because it gets so hectic, having all those keys laying around. But yeah,
what are your favorite three out of those three? You can only keep three.
yeah, top three cars. You always have to have like the perfect. I don't currently own. If I could only have three, I think you have to have an everyday, and a great solid everyday would be for me like a G wagon, but not a G63, probably
Like the
like a G.
Safari G Wagon kind of?
Yeah, like a Mercedes G wagon, probably a G500, and then definitely a Lotus Esprit. I'm a huge Lotus Esprit fan. I've got a couple of those, and then probably something else vintage German, maybe like the 190 Cosworth, which I also currently have. So something like that. I mean, that's a solid trio, but it changes. I mean, it's gonna change 10 minutes from now. So
Right, true car enthusiast. So getting back to 44 Tools, when my old window tint company in LA, Window Tint LA, we bought all our tools from you. I mean, I can't think of. I was trying to think where else we bought tools because I didn't want to say, well, we bought them all from you, but I think we pretty much bought them all from you. And the reason being was mainly, number one, I was just introduced to where do you buy tools, like in the industry, 44 Tools. Like the name was kind of synonymous with tools. But the real reason, I guess, that it kept my business, because obviously we don't know each other, and I know Bill, but I don't. He wasn't part of the business back then.
mhm.
It was really because of the website. Like I like the way the website was laid out. It's always been easy to shop. Once you have an account, buying stuff, checking out, and getting it, you're gonna get it. It's consistent. You have a wide variety of parts. I was never or tools. I was never really one to be like, well, I'm gonna look for this specific handle that's sold here, and then I'm gonna go somewhere else for that. And it's like I needed to buy a lot of tools, and that was the place to do it. And then, funny enough, I went back to the Wayback Machine, and I wanted to see what 44 Tools like looked like back in 2002 or 2003. And frankly, it almost looks similar. Like it's not drastically different in the sense
Right.
like it's well laid out. There's a menu on the top instead of the side, where the side now, and it's a clear place for tools. I guess where I'm going with this is uh, that the consistency of the orders, the variety of the tools, everything was for the most part in stock all the time. Was my reasons. You being behind the scenes, I feel like your strengths even more. Like who doesn't know their own business like the people who operate them? What do you think some are the standouts with 44 Tools that make it a place a lot of people call their
Yeah, I think
source?
so. Probably the biggest thing is that we are literally attached to us an auto spa in a really nice auto spa. I visited. I did a road rally a couple days ago up to Cleveland, and we visited another shop. Beautiful shop. But I was struck by the fact that like our showroom area
Mhm.
is like 7,000 square feet, which
Like a
which
car
you kind
dealer.
of take for granted.
It's like a nice
Uh,
car dealer.
yeah, it literally it's literally like
Mhm.
I mean, I've been to less nice
Sure.
highline like Ferrari dealers, you know,
Hmm.
especially in LA or Chicago. I mean, you're more landlocked. Clearly here that's not the problem. But I think one of the things is that we've always had on hand, on staff, multiple tinters, multiple PPF installers, always cross-trained. We're always, and me being a perfectionist and having cars that I want to be protected and that sort of thing. We've sort of over the past 4 years really started to push the envelope of really. And one of the things I emphasized early in my videos on the Instagram feed was to add services to your tents, to sort of to add a wash option or to add a, to talk to people about ceramic coating or to potentially look into if you have the shop space to really take a look at paint protection film because there's multiple profit centers there and some of the shops that are really doing it best have that's sort of like the holy trinity
Hmm.
in this business. And so yeah, I mean, I think it can start as simple as really offering a wash and maybe graduating that to a wax. But we offer a full line of that stuff and are constantly updating it. Really, over the past
Hmm.
4 years, we've brought in some new brands. Like C-Tech Chargers was a company that I've worked with Tim's Enthusiast Garage, and Sonax is a product line that I used personally. And so I think sometimes to add those detail supplies it's sort of a no-brainer that you can add value to what you're doing, add to the bottom line. Some tenors are kind of resistant to that, and we even initially kind of got some pushback on like there were too many. We were supporting paint protection film better than we were tint,
I
and
remember
it
that.
really,
And that
yeah,
was
it
more
really
like a
isn't the
navigational
case.
issue, right? I
Yeah,
think
right. And
people
I think
complaining about how to find the tint tools versus.
right, right. And we have recently sort of modified the website so that particularly if you're shopping for, say like a hard card, you're going to get, you're not going to you're going to see other hard cards. And
Mhm.
so we actually currently working on a new version of the website which is going to be a little more user centric in that we've launched the Club 44, which is like an incentives program to the more you shop the more points you earn and that sort of thing, and that's been pretty good. We've got a ton of buy-in to that, and a lot of people have really started saving money with that and earning points. But because we've added that club, it's helped us to sort of really boost our analytical, what the site looks like on the back end, and so we're starting to design. Because we've even started selling, like people come to the site because there's no support in their specific niche industry, like leatherworking is one of them. So we have like people that come to us to get all their leather, like belt makers and that sort of thing. And
Mhm.
so we don't want to like it's 44 tools has always been about tint, but at the same time we do support all these other sort of niche industries. And so we are working on a site that's going to be a little more user focused, user centric, so that if you are purely a tinter and the analytical data really shows us that this guy just tints,
Mhm.
you're only going to get tint. So even from as small or fine a point as if you're buying a tent keg and the kind of solution you normally use and that sort of thing,
Right.
we're going to recommend those sorts of things specifically to you as a tinter. And we do that now a little bit with the suggestion
Mhm.
bar. So when you click on a product, you'll see like a suggestion bar at the bottom, and it'll have like 4 or 5 other tools.
Mhm.
And we've kind of really been tweaking that over the past, I would say, 14 to 18 months has been really just trying to make that shopping experience better.
Yeah,
And
dialing that in
because I mean, we
is
all, I'll get it.
It's sometimes that like suggested products is thought of as a way of upselling, right? Like at one handle, it's like, hey, this is a good upsell tool, but really, what it is when you dial it into the level you're saying, it's a way to provide value to the shopper. Because I know, like on Amazon, I look when I'm buying something at the common things that people buy with it because I
For
need to
sure.
know if I need it. Like sometimes it comes with a little gasket or some refills or something, and I'm like, that's how
Yeah.
I know. It saves me from looking. And so I think there's tremendous value in that, and the fact that you guys don't just look at it as like, well, let it just pick whatever it wants, but you're actually looking at, hey, what makes the most sense? Because, you know, it
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah.
And I've come from a background where I owned service shops and did like automotive. So basically, I was a car dealer, and by being a car dealer, people want to get their car fixed. So you then add service,
Mhm.
and then you add PPF, and so you end up kind of trickling into all these other things eventually because
Sure.
sometimes, particularly in this area, it's kind of hard to find sometimes. Uh, good people to cross recommend. I mean, one of our problems right now is I get asked all the time, what's the best interior shop? Where do I send people for interior stuff? I don't know. I mean, there's a couple shops locally that we've tried, and
Like
honestly, we
reupholstering,
haven't been. What's that?
like reupholstering interior.
Yeah, like reupholstery, that sort of thing,
Hmm.
leather work, and honestly, there's not really. There used to be a really good one. The guy died, and so it's like now you're kind of like. So eventually, you just kind of start, snowballing. And I think, with Tent, it's one of those things where because you have the car in and you're getting the car wet already, you've got to clean the windows in order to tint it. Especially, man, if you're tinting like 1998 car and you're not offering, like, man, you're cleaning that car anyways. I mean, there's so much buildup on those windows. You might as well charge them for a wash anyways. And
Hmm.
so it's something where I know a lot of times I'm on all the tent forums and I see like, oh man, I could never get more than $149 for a tent in my area. But it's like if you take time and talk to a customer, like, look, your 1998 car, and just show them physically, like, here's the things that are going to compromise this window tint before I even start. Here's the problems I'm going to run into, and make it into an opportunity to give them back a car that's like glistening and shiny, and you didn't lose your butt because you had to essentially clean 20 years of filth off this car.
Right.
And it's not even because you don't have to pitch it as like they're a dirty person, but like, bro, the car, no
Sure.
one cleans their back window ever. So
Rick Tallman had a post, I think today or yesterday. He said, what are the things you would want your customers to know before they came into your shop?" And one of the things that stood out to me was people were saying, if they could just let their customers know to please clean their car before it comes in, don't bring it in full of dog hair and so on. If that's something that you encounter and frustrates you, the best thing to do, like you're saying, is be well prepared to take care of it. Because if you don't typically vacuum cars and you don't have a price structure for it, you don't really have a service to offer the customer, and you haven't set yourself up to do an efficient job at taking care of the problem. So, what you're saying
well
is
said.
spot on.
Well said. And that's what I had to tell you. I'm gonna give you a quick compliment here on this tent wisdom thing. Like when I first came into the business and I started looking for resources, looking for, I wanted to learn more.
Hmm.
It was like a vacuum. And now you've got a couple people doing like how to's, like really good how to's, and that has kind of even, that's sort of quantified now into like there was two, now there's 10 people that are sharing their tent wisdom. And I think that I have taken away so much from Matt and I were just talking. These episodes, like I feel like I take something away from all of them because all of them are such unique vantage points. Everyone started from like a different place.
Hmm.
There's different regions, and there's a lot of stuff that people don't ever think about. And I think, like you said, not having a price structure, not having something as simple as dog hair is $35 or $135 or whatever your market supports, and how do you effectively remove that dog hair? Well, the reality is 44 Tools already has all that stuff on there. And if you're not sort of like predisposed to like hate detail shops because you're a tinter, and I don't even know how that happens, but literally, like, you are already detailing the car before you tint it. Literally, you're
Right.
detailing the windows.
Right. And there's things you're doing before you tint the car, to the windows, and there's things you could potentially do after you tint the car, to the door panels, to the windows, maybe to the outside of the car. Like there's so many that there, and I when to a couple points. So on the resources end of what you just said, I feel fortunate that when I got into this industry, the main person that brought me into it, a good friend David in Florida, like he was just one of those people that was full of knowledge. He was in a great place in his business and career. So I guess what I'm saying is, it could have been anybody, and I'm glad it was him because I learned so much. But from there, it was you learn from other people around you. So you learn from your supplier. I know my supplier had a distributor. That distributor had a staff of people, and you start to learn, well, who knows about what? And if you don't have that, then you have maybe message boards online. There's some stuff shared online. If you don't have that, then where do you learn? Like, you're not going to figure it all out yourself. Like, there's no
Right.
way. There's no way. So,
Right.
back to your point of like the fact that you guys sell PPF, you got a little like hazing for it at a time, PPF tools rather, and that started taking over. To me, that's an advantage because I know Denko was our main supplier. We buy Hooper Optic from Denko, and Denko is primarily not a window film distributor. Ultimately, it's more like a graphics and sign distributor. So what that meant was, number one, they had like Rob Orange is one on staff, and he's coming on next week, and he's an absolute genius when it comes to tints. So at least they have the tints covered. But the whole point of this, or what I'm saying is, I was able to easily find stuff out about graphics and signs, which became a large part of the business because they also did that. So the fact that you guys, not only have tint, but then you're selling PPF tools and detailing tools and so on, like, yeah, that means you have more things, but that's a huge advantage because it's one resource. If you're buying your film, like for example, from Lumar, just saying, and I love Lumar,
Sure.
but if you're buying it from them and their distributors aren't selling you detail products. So now when if you want to go figure out detailing, like where do you go? And you're starting fresh versus I know where to go. And that could be
Right.
the difference between you actually expanding or it's seeming like a good idea that you never have time to.
And going back to sort of one of the things that makes 44 Tools, I would say unique, or also, probably the best resource, is that every day we're ceramic coating cars, we're doing all these things, and because of that, we are refining our knowledge base. We're changing the products that we sell on the site. We've phased out some product lines that we no longer use in the spa. So it's sort of like, I think that it's like the greatest asset is the fact that you're like among brothers. You know what I mean? Like we're in the brotherhood every day.
Mhm.
Every day we're like, like when the Tesla Model Y came out, a few months back when we first, first started tinting them, first started doing PPF. You figure out how to do that. It's the first one you've ever done,
Mhm.
and I think that it's the same. That same analogy can transport over to, like, well, how do I take my tiny one man in a car one stall garage, which we have a ton on our Instagram. There's guys that are doing work out of a single stall
Sure.
garage. I mean, every day tending like 11, 12 cars, and they've started to add detail. And now they're not like, okay, maybe they're not detailing every car to like concours, but they've now started adding like a simple wash to everything. And it's like, I mean, if you could add 25 to 50 or $100 to every ticket and you're doing 10 tickets a day,
Mhm. Huge.
like, I don't
Huge.
even know,
Yeah.
so
Mhm.
it's one of those things where hopefully it's a realization and it's a mind blow, and it can take, it may not happen today, but it's definitely something to consider the next time you're on 44 Tools. Look around, you know because there's plenty of products on there that are easy to install that you don't need to take a class to
Sure.
do.
Like,
Ceramic coating is a good example. One of the ceramic coatings we carry on there is a ceramic coating I would feel comfortable selling to a guy that's never really detailed a car before because it's hard to mess up. We also have really, high end stuff on there that you do need more information, to use and stuff. But we're even, one of the things we've been doing over the last year is really trying to add more detail to the website. Right now, what we're doing is we've kind of gone back and forth on how to properly suggest durometer on things for like literally for over a year and a half, because it's hard for people to really, when you buy, say, a little chiseler. I had one here. I don't know where it went. But, when you buy, a little chiseler and you go on the website and you're new to tint, I literally just had it's a little chiseler. It's here. It's pink. Anyways, but you go on the website, you see the pink little chiseler, and you're like, do I need the pink one? Do I need the yellow one? Do I need the white one? What's the difference? And so, we've started to, we've now have, I've taken literally probably 700 pictures of everything that bends to sort of, we're going to be adding those to the website over this new iteration. And so, hopefully that helps. Every little thing helps. We've changed the descriptions, because we do get, you got to think that once you're a tent master and you've been tenting for 6 or 7 years, your questions are going to be a lot different than the guy who's struggling to tent his first port window in a Mark 7 GTI. It's like you have different questions,
Mhm.
and so you may already know that contour is your jam, and you can do 12 different things with the contour, and for you, you've adapted the way you use that tool to just suit you just fine.
Sure.
But for some guys, they're literally trying, anything to try to get something on there. And a lot of times when if you're trying to get your tools from the film manufacturer, because back when I was doing, more car tunery stuff, I tried to install a lot of film, like wrap film myself. And it's funny because when you would buy a wrap film, they would give you like a single squeegee,
Mhm.
and it didn't work. It was like the worst squeegee. It was like literally like a tent hard card, and you're supposed to install, like, there's no instructions. There's really no. And this is 10 years ago. YouTube is great now because there's 100 videos on how to do the best wrap.
Mhm.
But that's one of the things we really strive to do, is like really tell you this is a tool for this. Here's how you use it. Blah blah blah.
Yeah,
So
hugely necessary. I think there's
yeah.
definitely a gap in like knowing which films to use when, and a gap in knowing what tools even exist and when to use them.
Mhm.
So yeah, I used to like so one of the things with tools was like I think made us a little different than some companies is we would buy like our stock room, like where people would come pick up our installers would pick up their film, was full of tools. Like we had like boxes, and like we tried to not we're selling them, but like we tried to keep anything they could possibly need. And I would go on the site and I would try to buy random tools, and I'd ask the guys like, "Hey, what do you think of this? Try this." Because number one, I think as a business owner, you should supply your staff with everything they need. I think that's going to pay you back in a million ways possible. And the second one is don't expect them to know what's going on, because at the end of the day, like, you have people who want to be employees. Nothing wrong with that. Not saying that in a bad way, but you do. You have people who want to be, and you have people who want to manage a million things. They're not the same. So if you hire somebody on and they're there to install film, they don't also want to, also purchase their own tools necessarily. They don't also want to keep, film in stock. They don't want to do a lot of things. They just want to put film on the glass. So it's your job to do that. So I feel like having those tools on hand keeps your employees loyal to you. I think it minimizes, think about this too, or I'm telling kind of broadly, but like if you expect your employee to take care of all their tools, so they're going to provide their own vehicle, they're going to provide their own tools, or they're like so set up to go work for anyone else anytime, right? You've set them up. But if they're getting everything
Right.
from you, they're more like, hey, this guy takes care of me. You are what, offering me to install film, but this guy takes care of me. He provides me everything. The other thing that I always thought was interesting is like, if you're not providing your tinters with tools, where are they getting them? Probably a film supply company local to them, maybe. So then you're putting them in the mix to talk to other people and go, hey, I got a job. You want a job? You want to like, it just seems so backwards. So anyway, I guess what I'm trying to say in the longest way possible is I think there's so much value into, like you said, don't get used to just the tools that you buy. See what else is out there, because it really is the right tool for the job type of scenario. And there's a lot.
Right. Right. I think it's different. One of the things that sort of hampers this industry is, so if you are a mechanic and say you're Audi factory trained Audi, you go to the Audi school, you know everything about that the Audi 4 liter, and you work on those, but you get like a pretty standard set of tools. Maybe there's some specific Audi tools for
Hmm.
like a timing belt or a timing chain or whatever, but you get like a 5 millimeter, a
Sure.
10 millimeter. You get standard tools in this industry. The interesting thing is that, because I'm not sure if it's because of the way that it was sort of born, and it's sort of been born out of this sort of adaptation, or this try anything and see what works type of thing. But there isn't sort of a standard set. One of the things we
Right.
did about a year and a half ago is really start to focus on putting together sets for different levels of different things. So whether it's a PPF beginner set or pro set or whatever, I think that's kind of important, because what we see, and again, kind of going back to the analytics of now having done this for 15 to 18 years, is we have, like you said, our website literally 2000 one, two, we have data from then.
Hmm.
So we know like what tools, people have been using over time and what works. And so, I do think a little bit of standardization, or a little bit of,
Hmm.
in this podcast, I think does that to some extent. But, saying, this is probably the best way. 100 people have tried to tint a car this way. And this, the reach tool is the best for this back window most of the time. And because then it kind of becomes like, it's easier to train people, because I don't know, I mean, you've this gets into the shop side of it, but training tenners is like one of the hardest things that I've ever been a part
Probably
of.
the biggest
Is
barrier to
it's
people's
a
growth is not being able to train tinters.
Absolutely. And tinning is, and I'll give props to everyone who is listening to this, is it is 1,000 times easier to change a head gasket than it is to put window tint on. I promise you, I'll change any number. It's one that you could change a window regulator quicker than, easier than you could tint a window. I
Sure.
mean, seriously, if you're coming off the street and you're like, I get people all the time. Oh, I want to try tinting. I'm going to buy this, and I'm going to try to tint. I'm like, prepare for frustration,
Hmm.
because the first 10 windows you tint,
Hmm.
you are not going to think it's possible. You're not
Hmm.
even going to think it's like doable. And I've seen like really, really good tenors, like master level tenors that are competing on competition levels, get so blown out tinting a car they've tinted 100 times that they have to walk away. And I come in and I'll tint that window, and not because I'm a good tinter, but because I'm not blown out by this car that just ruined my day.
Hmm.
It is like one of the hardest things you can really master. One of our tenors here at the spa right now is cross training in PPF, and he's like, bro, this is like the easiest thing possible. Like PPF, it's his one of his first installs was a full bumper on a Hyundai N, Veloster N, which is not an easy bumper to do. But after you've tinted the back window on a 911 Targa, you can put a PPF on anything.
Right,
So,
right.
you know,
And if you're not putting PPF on anything, I challenge you to why that's the case. And if it's because you're running a great tint business, that's great. But like the same way we just talked about all the advantages to your, getting tools from somebody who sells not more than just tint tools, or getting film from somebody who sells more than just window film. Customers see that same advantage when they're able to get more than just window tint from a shop. And I think I challenge a lot of people out there. If you're thinking, well, it's not worth my time, I'd say if you're the owner of the business, you can put any price you want on it. So find the price that it is worth your time. Find the price for PPF that you say, well, I'd love to do a front bumper at that price. And that's your price. And at the end of the day, the people who appreciate your quality, and you're going to get some sales, and you go from there. There's always a price, right?
it is that easy, and I think that that's where people get. I've noticed in tint in particular, there's like a real price war. There's a real like almost like a race to the bottom, which we don't do at the spa. We don't do at all. And a lot of times, when we've had like slower times, or like sometimes in the winter when you're sort of tempted to sort of go after that, man, you don't want those cheap tents anyways,
Mhm.
because they're always like the guy who's going to bring
Mhm.
bring you his Panamera which is, maybe a little bit harder car to tint. And we, at the spa, we charge a premium for a car like a Panamera. And I know I'm probably not going to mention an exact price because it's going to lead to 100 different comments below about it's too much, it's not enough. But the reality is, if the guy, I never have a problem with a Panamera customer. The Panamera customer comes in, he pays the price. It's either less than or slightly more than our competition in town, and he
Right.
gets an excellent install. The car's put back together well. The car is clean when he gets it. There's no issues. And it's like, at the end of the day, why would I, if I could tint what, five more Panameras at half the price? I mean, have I really gained anything? And I think there's that sort of tendency in the tent world to sort of race to, like, well, Joe Schmo down the street is doing $99 tents. Okay, let Joe do $99 tents all day
Sure.
and bust his butt. It's not worth it, because you know what you start doing when you're doing $99 tent and you break your contour. You're like, well, I can't really afford a new contour, so I'm gonna try, I'll just try to use my
Mm-hmm.
fingernail. Or, what, you start cutting corners, and then you're like looking for cheaper film, and then when you're looking for cheaper film, you're looking for ways to not honor warranties and all sorts of things.
You're
And
100%
it's just
right.
like, don't do it. Just
Yeah,
just don't do it.
you're 100%, 110% right. And, you've got to factor in, like, you got to look at your prices and go, how much am I going to pay myself as a tinter and how much is left over as company profit? And how much of that can go to marketing and so on. And if those numbers become zero after you pay yourself, you're not charging enough. And like you said, there's customers for every price point. So you going down in price, you're attracting a certain type of customer. And like you said, eventually you won't have any money to do anything or grow. The biggest two challenges I think for tint shops are finding more tinters and having more space, because you start with a one car, two car garage, and eventually you're like, shit, I need more. I don't have enough room in here for cars. Or you
Right.
say, I'm super busy and I don't have time, or I can't find another tinter. So if you're going to be limited by space and people, you have to raise the price. You can't also be down on price as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I
So,
mean, great wisdom there.
so Tim's Enthusiast Garage. 3 years you've been doing it?
Yeah, so this is the third season. We just launched the third season. It started truly as so I've done a variety. I mentioned car dealership. I mentioned service shop. I owned a gauge company that actually was extremely successful, and sold that prior to this. And after that,
What kind of
I had a
gauges?
period of,
Like boost gauges? Like
yeah, boost
engine
gauges. I
gauges?
started a company called P3 Cars, P3 Gauges.
Cool.
P3 Gauges, I'll give them a shout. I mean, they make gauges for Audi, Volkswagen, BMW. We started it in one of our basements, and it was called P3 because it was three of us. And it really kind of quickly became the industry standard. And really, my part in that was, I've always had a real strong identity on branding, and I understand, like, the parts that I would want to buy, the kind of cars that interest me, and that sort of thing. And so after I sold that company, I kind of, took a break and really kind of looked at, what are the things that I really enjoy. And I had written a couple articles for magazines and stuff like that, and I thought, the thing that I do best is really be enthusiastic about things I'm passionate about. And so, and I had a small collection of cars, and I found myself, when I wanted to add a car to that collection, going to YouTube and trying to see, what do other people that have this car say about the car? Do they,
Yep.
what is it reliable? How to buy it? Those sorts of things. And then I was like, I already, I could really contribute to this. Is kind of really where that came from. And so then it just has become this thing where, now I write for a larger magazine, and now I get invited to car shows to sort of do this and that. And I think, being an authority on, really, on a larger sense, the automotive industry, and having having been in it for now 20 plus years, of, starting my very first job where I was a kid, basically, like, lusting after cars and getting the opportunity to clean cars for
Hmm.
what I think was literally like $10 and I could ride around the building in the car type of thing at 12 or something. So like, even at that age, sort of getting the hustle and being like, well, man, if I buy my own stuff and I let people know I can clean their cars, I can be a car detailer. And so, sort of this, I'm passionate about the automotive industry. I'm passionate about specific cars, and I own some interesting cars. And I've kind of become, there's not a lot of people that are passionate about the Lotus brand, which is a shame. And so I've kind of become the Lotus guy. What happens is usually now when I meet someone, like I met, Magnus Walker, and he's like, "Oh, you're the Lotus guy." So it's like, I'm kind of the Lotus guy now, sort of because no one else wanted to be the Lotus guy. So, that's my thing, and I'm enjoying it. It's right at that point where it's like almost successful. I've been on the Smoking Tire podcast with Matt Farah, and I've done some things that are pretty notable, and some of the videos have views, but it's just at that point where it's like I'm almost a real automotive authority.
What would make
Almost.
you a real automotive authority in your eyes?
Yeah, about like, well, I mean, in my eyes, could I ever be an authority to myself? Probably not. I'm happy. What the comment that I get the most on the channel is, I was thinking about buying this car. Your video pushed me over the edge. I bought it 6 months ago. It's been the best ownership experience of my life. I just had a guy bring to the spa. I have a Maserati Grand Sport, and it's one of my favorite cars. It's a fantastic car.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very underrated car. It's got a Ferrari F136 engine. You can drive the piss out of it, and it likes it. It's a very it's a very good car.
Is it
So
a
this guy
V12?
sees this video. Go ahead.
Is it a V12?
No, it's a V8. So
V8.
yeah,
Okay.
it's a V8. The F136 is shared with like the Ferrari F430.
Okay.
So this guy sees the video, buys the exact car, brings it to the spa to have like, paint correction, all the stuff done, and he's just as enthusiastic about it as I am. He's had it for like a year now,
Mm-hmm.
but that is truly, I mean, am I successful? Yes. Am I making money from it? Not really. But I think the point at which, I would consider myself truly successful, I mean, I already think I enjoy doing it. To make money from it is probably the success. And I think, it's getting close. I started actually as a result of the channel. I found that there was a real need to kind of get together with enthusiasts, and a lot of enthusiasts have sort of centered on this 80s and 90s car culture because there's like a lot of interesting cars from that era that are kind of
Mm-hmm.
at like the bottom of the depreciation curve, and so a lot of people can get in on cars that they probably shouldn't be able to afford, like
Mm-hmm.
Porsches and all these
Yeah.
cool cars. And so I started a car show called Motor Vice, and we do Motor Vice shows in Florida, in Texas, and all over the place. And this is also of that our third year, and unfortunately we have had to cancel the whole show season essentially. So that's kind of been a bummer. But yeah, I'm super stoked about Tim's Enthusiast Garage, and every time I get a new subscriber, I'm still, I hope I never lose that sort of innocent joy and passion for it, because I think that one of the things that separates me from a lot of YouTubers is there's so much clickbait stuff on YouTube. Like, this is the most, look at this piece of crap I just
Sure.
bought, and headline and weird, and
The
it's not
cheapest
that.
Mercedes in the world.
Yeah, the cheapest Mercedes in the world, or
Yeah.
this is how much it costs to fix my broken Bentley, or
Yep.
it's never going to be that. So, but it is going to be pure, raw, unadulterated. Here's the truth about this car, and so I've got this season we've got about 25 cars. It'll be double the size of the last season. 25 cars lined up, and it's everything from a new Lotus Evora S or GT to some of the older, weirder stuff I've got. We've started to shoot reviews on that, to Porsche 997 turbos. And so, cars that are in that corridor of like 5,000, that you can buy one for 5 grand or you can buy one for 100, but probably nothing too much above that, because not a lot of people, everybody's got, all the YouTube people have Huracans and
Sure.
Aventadors.
I
That's
feel
not fun.
like the 80s and 90s that you just spoke about, it's to me like it made me think of like our generations like it's our version, our generation's version of the 60s and 70s. Or like you see like an older person driving around like
Absolutely.
a 50s or 60s convertible, and you're like, I don't know what you see. Like I like that, but it's not for me. But then like the 80s and 90s is like where, more
Yeah.
relatable, I guess.
And
And
this is our time, and
right.
the good news is over the next 20 years, we're going to drive all those cars up to like 80, $90,000, and then our kids are going to all inherit them and be like, I have this like, Nissan 300ZX that no one wants, but it's sort of like I did a video recently about 60s cars, late 50s cars are kind of dropping in value because, not to be morbid, a lot of the people that were really passionate about them are not alive anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And there's still like I mean, there's a lot of things to be passionate about a 65 Thunderbird or
Mm-hmm.
whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I mean, it definitely is for me, obviously, when you're a kid, Lotus Esprits and Countachs and Ferrari F40s hit me really hard in the same way that, like, okay, maybe the Ferrari Enzo hits someone that's 22.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I still love the Enzo, but
Right.
that's kind of
It's
where that's at.
Yep. And I just saw a post on Bring a Trailer, and it was for a very mint VW Corrado, and I was like, oh man, it just brought me back to when I was 16 shopping for cars, and I really wanted a freaking Corrado. The
Bro,
difference,
I love the Corrado.
yeah, the difference between like the VR6 and I think it was like a turboed four or
Jeez,
supercharged four.
yeah,
Or,
jeez, yeah.
yeah, and like,
I just did a video on the 5 cars you should buy right now, and there was in 5 different price ranges. So like 0 to 7 grand, or 10 grand, and then 20 grand, and it kind of went up. But the Corrado was that car, because there's like
mhm,
literally probably like 20 mint condition Corrados left, and
really,
when one
oh,
comes up on
that's so sad.
yeah, but when one comes up on the, you want to get it before it ends up on Bring a Trailer. In my first season, I bought a car from Bring a Trailer before they did auctions,
Uh-huh.
and it's hilarious. If you watch this video now, it's on my yellow Coupe Quattro. I bought it on. They had Bring a Trailer used to like post cool cars that were for sale, and you could go get it with your trailer or whatever. Well, I found this Coupe Quattro in California and bought it, and pleased to have it. It's a fantastic car. But the way I talk about Bring a Trailer on that first episode, it's like no one's ever heard of Bring a Trailer, and now everybody's heard of Bring
Sure.
a Trailer, and it's kind of like the truth in terms of like what values are. But yeah, I mean, there's been Scirocco's that have sold for $38,000 on Bring a Trailer. There's
Crazy.
like, what's another? There's like an M5 wagon. I mean, which we didn't get in this country, so it makes it kind of extra cool. But pushing like 100 grand, and I mean, just crazy stuff. So I mean, it definitely is. When you get some money from Tintin, I mean, go watch Tim's Enthusiast Garage, because I am sharing some, so not Tint Wisdom, but car wisdom over there. And there are cars you can buy and hold on to for a little while. And I mean, I've tripled my money on cars. I was telling you also before we started, I was born, extremely poor, like single parent, no trust fund at all. And now, through, wise investment, and through, really stuff like this, where it kind of just comes to you, all of a sudden people are giving you advice. And if you're not too full of yourself to take that advice, all of a sudden you're like a proud business owner, and
Yeah.
all of a sudden your bank account has 2 more zeros. So yeah, it can happen. Even if you've only tinted your second car, and you're listening to this going, dang man,
Mhm.
these guys are, it's true, it can happen. So
So you are, I mean, that's how I got into business really was car message boards. That's where I started in business was buying and selling stuff from the for sale section of the car message board of the car I had. And you become known in the community and so on. And it kind of builds momentum. And like you said, before you know it, you're a proud business owner. Somebody recognizes it as a business and you're like, wait a second. So and I feel like you're a great example of somebody who's stuck with it, and you're obviously known in the community. Um, I'm curious your thoughts on opportunity in like message boards, online communities, and so on, because like you became the Lotus guy, and that means that you come out with something for like you could bring Lotuses no like to your business very easily, and I just feel like that's an opportunity for a lot of people who are car enthusiasts to see that you can actually bring value to your business by spending some of that time as a car enthusiast or as whatever enthusiast you are, because it does bring you customers at the end of the day. You become
It's kind of funny because people, individuals and business owners, like what you just said, is missed by a lot of people. For whatever reason, a lot of business owners do not see value in things that are extremely tangible and very effective. You know, one of the things that Instagram has sort of forced on business owners is this very effective messaging opportunity for you to say, here's what we do, here's where we are. And guess what? You can go and talk to each person on there personally. You can see someone like your thing and then go and see, oh, they have a Tesla Model 3. I've tinted 1,000 Tesla Model 3s. Go and talk to that Tesla Model 3 owner. Hey, you know, like if you ever have any questions about your Tesla Model 3, hit me up.
Mhm.
That's still an effective. I mean, one of the ways when people are always like, man, how do you get people into the spa? I mean, just be myself. And it's, well, that's you. Only you, you know, that's you because you're Tim and people know you. I mean, all it takes is being genuine
Sure.
and being, you know, a little bit of your time. And I think sometimes business owners, you know, look at that as like, oh, you know, that's time wasted. Like time on social media is time wasted, or time on like the focus forum is like, I mean, you can have a business where, I mean, there are many businesses started where all they do is put big turbo kits on Ford Focus STs or Ford Focus RSs.
Hmm.
You can only do Ford Focus. I mean, you don't need to do every car on the planet.
Yep.
You can only tint Teslas. That's a thing that you can make that decision,
Hmm.
and you can be the best Tesla shop in whatever your market is, wherever you're at. And I think that authentic, you know, what you're talking about is essentially what, you know, what Tim's Enthusiast Garage is, which is like when someone makes a comment on one of my YouTube videos, well, guess what? I respond to it. Same thing with 44 Tools. If you come on 44 Tools and you're like, oh, I've always wondered about this tool, I have some questions, guess who answers your question? Me. You know, and even if I had 20, you know, 20 other people, we do have other people that sort of are on those message boards, but a lot of them aren't as passionate or aren't as knowledgeable or aren't as, you know, they may not, I'm going to find the answer for you if I don't know it. And so that is how you grow, that is legitimately how you grow your business. And I think that, you know, you also said, you know, sort of the answer to the equation earlier, maybe without knowing it, but stick with it. I mean, stick with it is the moral of the story.
Yeah.
Is like, why is, you know, most people have started a YouTube channel. I get comments from people all the time that have a YouTube channel that has 5 subscribers because they started it and realized, damn, this is a lot of work.
Mhm.
Like, you
Right.
mean, you know, you mean I got to go, same thing with teaching people how to tint. I mean, Tint Wisdom doesn't just happen. You decide to take a couple hours of your time and share some Tint Wisdom. Why is Tint Wiz successful? Because you continue. You
Right.
you continue and you don't quit. So I mean, I think that it's as easy as you want it to be. It's just as it's also as hard as saying, you know, it's been a long day. Do I really want to get on the message board at the end of the day?
Hmm.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
do. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah, and somebody you mentioned earlier, you mentioned Kevin Hart. Kevin Hart was just on Joe Rogan's podcast, I think yesterday or the day
which
before.
is amazing.
And about 20 minutes into it, he's talking about leveling up and how, like, when you stick with something, you kind of reach a next level and you bring that perspective. And then from there, you reach a next level and you bring that perspective. And I think a lot of times people get stuck looking at, like, you know, the 20th floor and they don't know how to get up there. And it really is a matter of, like, take some steps forward, take some steps forward. You don't know where they're going to lead, but you do have to stick with it and keep pursuing it. You don't know when that next level's coming, but it is important to stick with it. And I think that's where authenticity comes to, you know, it plays a big factor, because you're not going to stick with something you don't authentically enjoy if it's not authentically you, and so on.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
So you come up, okay, so some of the thoughts I had before we did this live stream today was, you know, I thought how, you know, you obviously play a major role in 44 Tools. You have the auto spa. You have the Tim's Enthusiast YouTube channel, which on its own can, you know, like you said, it's not a small, it doesn't just happen. The videos don't just get edited and they don't just appear on YouTube. And you
Right.
know, you have 20, 25 cars, and you have the car show, the Vice car show. is my mind went to what's your one, like if you had to pick one, where do you see yourself 5 years, 10 years? Which one would take your whole passion? Like, but then my counter thought to that was maybe that's why you're so well balanced, or you come across to me as somebody who's very content and happy, is because you have a lot of iron, like different kettles in the fire.
Yeah.
Which so to tell me, is there a one thing that would just be the ultimate to you? Would you love to just be a YouTuber if that was an opportunity, if money aside, or do you enjoy having those different, because you're an
So I
entrepreneur at
think
heart?
no matter what, no matter what, I think that you don't. So let's take Kevin Hart for example, and I think to some extent you, for example, but there's sort of you cannot be the master of 100 different things.
Right.
You can truly only be the master of one or two things. That is true, but there is something to the diversity and sort of being the way I met 44 Tools, and I can, or the even the Auto Spa, or came to know Bo Ryan and George Lewis, was through Tim's Enthusiast Garage. I was looking for sponsors because I knew that out of the gate the only way I'd be able to do it, even though I had sold a company and had it wasn't like I needed to. I was making a new company. Tim's Enthusiast Garage was a new company,
Hmm.
and so I went to them to see if they would sponsor, a couple episodes of the first season, which they did. And so and I was really, I've been lucky over the years where Haggerty Insurance and O'Reilly Auto Parts, have believed in, have seen the passion and believed in it, and
Hmm.
have supported things that I've done. I also have a track record of having done successful things in the past and having, you know, not gone away. I guess for lack of a better word. And so in terms of only doing, where do I see myself in 5 years? I think the role changes. I think there's always this sort of evolution. As a business owner, business owners have a tendency to, well, not all business owners, but it's very easy, and I've been guilty of this certainly, but there's this sort of thing where there's certain things that I'm good at, and there's certain things that I'm not good at, and it really did take me about 20 years to figure that out. And so you try to micromanage, and you try to sort of you operate. It's very easy to operate out of fear and make decisions based on fear and control and those sorts of things. And one of the things I've really learned over the past, I would say 3 to 5 years, and I think one of the things that's given me a little bit of peace about whatever the future does hold, is that I'm pretty comfortable with who I am, and I'm pretty comfortable with what I bring. Like, I'm extremely comfortable with what I bring to the table at 44 Tools.
Hmm.
And I've brought that to the table at a variety of different companies. And I think, in the future, I see Bo is fantastic to work with. And I see in the future, my role may change or may be different in the future, but I think, I'll be with 44 Tools for quite some time, and potentially, for forever. As far as the thing that I dedicate the most time to, or that is the most enjoyable, I mean, certainly things that allow me to talk about cars every day are really enjoyable. So, there could be, a variety of opportunities to write or do videos for other channels, those sorts of things that I welcome. But I can't ever really see myself, I've always sort of been gloriously overcommitted, and it's kind of worked out for me. And I cringe at the idea of retirement. I cringe at the idea of,
Yeah.
when you talk about like not doing something, like I always want to do things.
Right.
So I don't know. I probably didn't answer that question, and that's not because I'm not,
Now you
being
did.
authentic, but
I
yeah,
think you did.
good, good.
I think you did. And what you're saying, like, retirement, like the whole idea of retirement a lot is tied to kind of how the workforce previously was, where, you worked for a company for X amount of years, and then at the end of the day, you became either too old to work for them anymore, or whatever the case. But like, you get a pension, whatever it is, you retire, and that's it. And there's not a place for you to go anymore. But now with the internet, like, even if you were super old, which you're not, neither of us are yet, but even if you're super old, there's nothing that stops you from running a business, even if you don't move out of your sofa, even if you don't get off your sofa.
Right.
know.
And I know a guy, and I'll just tell you this quick story is one of the things that kind of, I mean, this guy probably doesn't even realize it. His name's Roger Cochran, but in a lot of ways, this guy was a visionary or a luminary or someone who really showed me the way. Now, this guy made some bad business decisions, and I'm not saying that all that, but that guy's currently 91 years old, and up until like 4 months ago, I see him regularly at like the car auction. This dude is still passionate about cars, and he's still healthy, and he's still out there. Now, he's probably not working at the same level, but like this dude and I like literally, would fly to a car auction 15 years ago. He was late 70s at that point in his plane that he was flying. And this dude is just like, he was doing it all. He was passionate about life. And I think, I look at Roger, and whether or not Roger made all the right decisions or not, the one decision Roger made that that really stuck with me is like, Roger was still trying to get another rental property. Roger was still trying to save up and get another plane. Roger was passionately wanted another. He collected old Alfa Romeos and old like weird motorcycles, and he would still. I literally at like 81 years old saw that dude ride a wheelie on a Ducati 996 down the road to shut down some punk kid, and I was like, dang man, Roger's like the truth. And so I mean, yeah, be Roger. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? There's really no reason for you to, even if you've made all your money or your whatever your goal was, set another goal. And I think there's a happy medium there. You don't want to work your fingers to the bone, and there really is a happy medium. You got to find that, but then you got to also keep setting those goals, setting those targets.
Yeah.
So
Keep
I
yourself
recently
engaged.
set a target for myself to buy a car that used to be on my would never own, I wouldn't ever be able to own it list. And I'm pretty serious about that. So how will that manifest? Right now, I don't really know. But it's a target. And you know what forced me to do that is like I remember being 18 and saying I want to have a Lotus Esprit Turbo by the time I'm 25. And I think it was 26. At 26, I finally, got my first one. And how did that happen? I mean, when I was 18 and made the target, I was driving a $3,500 beater. Like I mean, you can't ever stop with the goal, and
No.
and I think you should apply that, to your tent shop or to your
Hmm.
tent shops or your tent, or your detail shops. Uh, and that's where, guys like Bo Ryan, guys like George Lewis, guys like Bill Valway, you know, I love and I share with them that true zeal for like, what's next. And I've, like I said, it's been car dealerships. It's been a little bit of everything, and not everything. Please don't take this as like nothing's ever been a failure. I mean, I've had I mean, there's days where you're like, man, I am not being very successful here. I mean, you're gonna have that, but you gotta war through that.
Right, 100%. You got to keep going. You got to keep that vision going. If you don't have that vision, if it doesn't excite you, if you don't have a reason, then like you're probably not going to go anywhere. And that whole vision thing gets lost in people sometimes, like where you think having the vision is enough. It's not enough, but it's a critical ingredient. But it's not enough. You have to take action towards that vision as well. But you have to have the vision to begin with. And if you don't have a vision, get a vision, because if not, like I feel like it just becomes it's a waste of time. Like it becomes boring, or it becomes a waste of time.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's also, that Kevin Hart podcast. I would say for those of you who maybe haven't watched that Joe Rogan Kevin Hart, man, dude, I was like straight fired up. That's why like today I'm like, we can do it today or we can do it Thursday. Let's do it today
Yeah.
because Thursday, let's conquer some other hill. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's like, to hear Kevin Hart and his take on Michael Jordan is like, bro, and all these people, when he said one of the things he said in that podcast that kind of stayed with me was he got invited to a party and Jeff Bezos was there, And his buddy was like, "Man, no, don't go talk to Jeff Bezos. Jeff Bezos doesn't want to talk to you." Like, no, he's like, "How many times am I going to have to talk to Jeff Bezos? I'm gonna create opportunity here."
Mhm.
And I see that, we go to SEMA every year, or we go to, the window film trade show every year. And I think there's opportunities, a ton of opportunities missed because people don't have the balls to sort of say, or even the realization to say, what can I take away from meeting this guy? What wisdom can I get from him? That maybe, because how did Jeff Bezos go from a garage, schlepping some books to a trillionaire? He got $1 trillion.
Does he
Like,
already?
yeah, I think, well, or in a
Feel
week. I
like
mean,
he's
he's
going to
he's
be
like
like the
he's like
first trillionaire. I don't know. Maybe he is now. Shit has moved well in his direction over
I
the
mean,
last month or
he
two.
I think it's already happened, or it's going to
Okay.
happen in the next day or two. But he's a
Cool.
trillionaire. So, like, yeah, if you get the opportunity to meet, whoever it is. I mean, I'm a musician as well, and so at the same time that I've had all these car things going on, I've done voiceover acting and a variety of different things, on the music side, and there has never been anyone that I was too proud to sort of, and I'm oh, can I have your autograph? It's not that. It's like, hey, I really admire this thing that you did. Give me some of that wisdom. How did you do that?
Hmm.
And I think you can't ever, if you see someone's tent shop and you're like, man, this dude is really doing it. I do it when I go to the tent convention. I mean, I really did it the first couple years I went, because I see these guys that are tenting, and I really want to know, like,
Hmm.
how do you tent 11 cars in a day? I mean, I literally don't. I still have a hard time really comprehending that zone. And if you can get in the zone where you can tent 11 cars in a day,
Hmm.
and you can't get in the zone to, like, maybe save some money, or like stop renting and buy a house, like, bro, you definitely have the ability to do those things. I mean, if you can get 11 cars in a day, you can stop renting a house and buy some property and those sorts of things. So it's setting goals, and it's really sort of identifying those things and saying, like, what really changes my status, and what are those things that, what are my goals, and articulating that. Bill, who we work with here, he does that every day. I know for a fact. So does Matt. So do most of the people here. Have goals that they set, every day. And I think whether or not you identify with that person and say, they don't even have to be a good person, but you can take away from something from them and say, you know what, I don't want to have a business just like theirs, but I do want to have that drive. And I don't want to make this decision just like them, but I do want to make those goals. And so it can be taking little things away, but
Hmm.
it's about doing that work.
Yeah, 100%. And Bill posts, I'm sure you see on Instagram, I think every day, a quote. He takes a picture of a quote from like a workbook, like a daily workbook. And I love it. I love those quotes. Like, Bill's an awesome guy, but I love the quotes. It's somebody I would follow just for that. Like, one,
Right.
you get pieces from everywhere. You don't know how they come together. You don't know when they come together. Like you said earlier, your Tim's Enthusiast Garage is how you ended up, getting connected with 44 Tools and the auto spa and so on. So, sometimes I think people think, how is that going to work out? You can't predict. If you could predict it, life would be different, but you can't predict. It's just about going down that road and seeing where it takes you.
I'll say one other thing too, just real quick, about sort of goal setting and sort of uh, really having a plan. Is years and years ago. So Bo Ryan is one of the owners here, and he had worked with George, who started 44 Tools, for literally decades. So since they, and he had seen even other businesses. They had a bike shop. They had done numerous things together. And Bo took away, every good thing that George had ever, every little bone that George had tossed out. And George tossed a lot of bones. They were between jokes, and they were between talking about Florida sports or Florida in general. And you kind of had to, like, be in it to win it with George. But, like, Bo, you can just see, and one of the things I love about Bo Ryan is that, like, he took away so many nuggets, and you can see it in his family. You can see it in his business. You can see it in his personal finance. You can see it in, I mean, that dude drives a truck he bought new in 2007. It's got 180,000 miles on it. It's, well maintained. He's a well put together guy. You can just see the sort of daily workbook that this dude has done and the little things he's taken away from every everyone he's ever met. And I think that, realizing that and sort of surrounding yourself with people that you're like, man, Eric really has it together. Every time I talk to Eric, well, okay, take stuff away from Eric because Eric, got it from someone else. And so I think that there's these opportunities. You mentioned the Kevin Hart thing. Like you could easily listen to that and just be like, oh, Kevin Hart's rich. It's easy to say those things when you got, $500 million in the bank and, whatever. Dude got in a car accident
Mm-hmm.
and was literally crippled. I promise you, if I'm in your Hellcat and you drive it off the side of a cliff, I personally, I can vouch for myself on this, do not have what it takes to be 10% body fat 9 months later
Right.
and full mobility and all that stuff. So what do I take away from that? What I take away from that is what I did. One of the first things I did today was more sit-ups and walked before I came into the office. And so, if you can take those things away and you can make yourself more disciplined and you can see, what it is about Bo Ryan or about Eric or about Bill or about anyone in your circle that you can say, there's wisdom there. I'm going to grab that wisdom, man, because it makes your tent shop or your PPF shop or your family even, on a more granular level,
Mm-hmm.
better.
Yep.
I digress.
No, you're right, and it's not about perfection; it's about progress. I know for myself, sometimes if I don't have this amount of time, it just takes a little bit of time. It just takes a little step forward, and it builds on momentum. So, and yeah, and what you were saying about Kevin Hart, like the way he described, how he tackles things, I think is just
Yeah.
such a valuable like perspective of what can I do better? How can I, okay, that you're giving me the standard. What can I do to push that? What can I do on my own? And he takes it all as a challenge. He wants to figure it out. And I think that mentality is what keeps you active and vibrant and like, on the cutting edge because, if you're not actively working in that direction, I think you're falling behind. I don't think there is like a steady pace you live. Either you're trying to figure things out better than yesterday or you're going kind of backwards and dying mentally.
I mean,
There's no cruise
100%,
control.
1,000%. Yeah. No, you've got to, you have to contribute to your success and invest in your success. And I see a lot of people, particularly on tent forums and automotive forums to a lesser degree. There's a lot of vitriol and venom, and unfortunately, social media has sort of brought out some of the worst aspects of us. And instead of building people up, in the tent community, it's a small community. I mean, relative to how many mechanics there are, or relative, if you're a flat glass installer, you're in a pretty narrow field of people. And so I see a lot of times people decide that they're going to have, friends and enemies.
Yeah.
And really, life is far too short to have enemies
Yep.
and to just sow seeds of discord and anger. And so one of the things, I like to, personally that I like to emphasize and that I do with my YouTube channel is even if you're coming at me with some venom or hate, I really try to hit you back with like, I see what you're saying, or, like something that's not like you're an ass, because it's so easy to say, it's so easy to be like, one of the things is like, it's super popular to a PPF, bad PPF job comes into your shop.
Mhm.
Bro, we have bad PPF jobs come into our shop every day that, someone put a knife cut in their car or whatever. I mean, it's our job to fix that. It's not really our job to say like, look at this,
Who did this?
crap
Which one of
installer. Who
you?
did this?
Who did this? Like that's one of those things too, where like I feel like you got to question like, okay, you're going to take some time out of your day, you're going to take pictures, you're going to post them, you're going to write something, you're going to start a conversation, and I'm like, okay, so do that a bunch of times. What do you get from that? Does it benefit you in any way? Does it benefit anyone? And if it's no, like
Unless you're going to use it as a teaching moment and say, you know what, like, look,
right,
where they wrapped this edge and it didn't stick, here's what I do. No one ever does that. I
No.
never hear like, here's how I get here's how I get my X belt to stick, or here's how I don't get lift lines, or
Yeah.
here's how, that it's never that. It's like, this ass clown can't install PPF. I'm gonna fix it. And I'll tell you, we all, there's great other shops here in our town. I've seen I've seen jobs that they've done that are better than ours. I've seen jobs that they've done that are far worse than ours.
Yeah.
It depends on the day. It's sort of like, you buy a car that was made on a Saturday or a Monday, or you buy a car that was
Yeah.
made on a Tuesday, or
Yeah.
a car that was made at quitting time. I guarantee there's a lot of Teslas. They're trying to make a lot of Teslas. And so you see a lot of paint imperfections and
Hmm.
panel gap weirdness on Teslas because they're churning them out. But like, I just don't see the point in, like, everybody's seen a bad PPF install. I would go so far as to say we've all done a bad PPF install, or we've all done a bad tent install. I know a fantastic tinter locally here who's done work for me that I've seen jobs of his that are like, this is the best tent job I've ever seen. I've seen that same guy throw down a tent job that has a lot of dirt in it.
Hmm.
So I think that it's like sort of like casting. We're all sort of throwing stones at like glass houses and being like, that's just a quick way to get torn down, and a quick way to sort of have enemies in a in an environment that we can't really, you can't really afford to have enemies. There's no reason for it.
It's the most ineffective marketing technique ever. If you like to put out a picture of a bad tin job or a picture of a bad PPF or whatever it is, unless you really are taking it to the level of like, here's the bad one, here's the good one, this is the difference between us, and you're explaining that to a customer. Other than that, like, I've never gone to a customer and been like, hey, I want to show you this really shitty tin job on somebody's home. I never, like, it never
Right.
was part of the conversation. I don't know any customer that would
Yeah.
appreciate it. Like, hey, let me show you how shitty it could look. If you don't pay us enough, like, how does that work? Or
Yeah. Who are you
if
gonna?
you go somewhere else,
Yeah.
if they're already hearing you, they're probably not going somewhere else. That's the thing too. Like, most of the time,
Right.
the people you're talking to already know about your service. So like, it really is ineffective. It's kind of like, I don't know. It's just like a waste of, it's like an emotional thing. Maybe you feel like you're venting to the world, but it really is ineffective. And the more you focus on your competitor's shitty work, the less you're focused on your own business.
Yeah. I've just found. I mean, negativity. Negativity just breeds more negativity. I mean, you look at one of those posts, and it's just always. It's sort of like, politics on Facebook anymore. It's like, you're not going to change anyone's mind. So like, what, all you're doing is saying like, this dude can't install PPF, or this guy can't tint a window.
Hmm.
What about if who actually did that PPF, like reaching out and being like, hey man, we got this PPF in, like, there was some real rough things, we're redoing it, but like, stop out and, we'll work together and we'll both become better PPF installers. Like, I know locally we've got some, I know probably a dozen really good tenors, really good PPF installers. And the less that they focus on, because it's easy to get negative, but the more that I see them, one guy in particular used to be super negative. He was just always real negative. And that guy, something happened. He went to expel school, and he just, I don't know, a light switch went on. And all of a sudden, he's like, every time I talk to this dude now, it's like a super positive vibe. And I'm like, man, I don't even know what, you drank,
He did
but like,
DMT.
everyone needs to drink it.
He said he's probably smoked DMT.
Yeah, DMT. Joe Rogan says that's what everybody needs. That's what everybody's missing. So,
Yep. So, yep, everybody's missing. I mean, look, if you look, you're going to spend your day talking about something positive or talking about something negative. I know I feel actually better talking about something positive. So the more you can train yourself to look at the positive end, look at the opportunity, going back to Kevin Hart, you have everything, you have tons of money, you have everything in your hands, and you go flying off a cliff and maybe won't walk again. You can take that two ways, and it goes the same with, if your lead installer quits or a shop opens up right next door to you and so on. These can be moments that change you for the better, change you for the worse, and you're the only one that gets to experience that. So go for better.
competition. I'll say this. When competition, I think, always brings, it brings better products to the market. But competition is not. I have never feared competition. Competition is something that I don't, maybe personally, like I strive on it or thrive on it, but like
Mhm.
competition just means, that, if you're in a market and you're doing window tint and you're the only tinter, and all of a sudden there's this need for more and more tint, you must be a pretty good window tinter because people are talking about window tint. So
Mhm.
just keep doing you. Just keep being a window tinter and keep tinting those windows. I really don't know anybody that has kept doing what they're really good at. I mean, even we had a tinner here that went on to start his own shop, and he's over the last 3 years or so really worked on himself and really worked on the positivity. And his shop, he has more work than he can handle. And it's like I don't know anybody that has said, you know what, I'm not going to do the weird negative thing, and I'm gonna be positive, and I'm gonna, be a good human being, and
Mhm.
doesn't win because of that. There's so I don't know many people that are like,
Right.
it's gonna be my job to like, whatever, take this film brand down, ha ha ha, or this tool company, I'll show them I'm gonna make the
Mhm.
only good tools. There's room. Believe me, if you want to make a tent tool and you want to bring it to 44 Tools and say, hey, I've made this tool. It's a good tool. I've done this. I've done that. We sell every year we sell new people's tools. Like if they're a good businessman and they can get, tent keg's a great example. The tent keg, I mean, do we sell other kegs? Yeah. Are there other kegs on the market? Yeah. But tent keg's a great freaking product. So guess what? We carry it. I mean,
Mhm.
it's as simple as that. Make a great tool that allows you to tuck film a new way and it's different and unique. We carry it.
Yeah, Tin Keg, while you brought that up, I really like Tin Keg. I like the variations I've seen the other companies that do something similar, but Tin Keg specifically, like we've worked with. And I just want to say to anybody out there that's like, I want a keg, but I'm going to build my own. If it takes you more than an hour to know how to build your own keg, don't build it, buy it. Because that same hour you could tint a car, you're going to make more than the keg cost. So, like the thought process of like, I'm going to go on Facebook, I'm going to research how to build a keg. I'm going to spend hours. Sometimes a hose is going to blow or I need a new fitting. Then I'm going to go get that. Then I'm going to go online and talk about how cheap the keg I built was. Factor in the time you put into it because there is something to using tools and using people's time that they spent time figuring it out. They spent iterations of it. So, like, just wanted to get that out there since you brought it up. Go buy
I mean,
a
that
keg.
is the truest thing you've ever said. I mean, you a true product that you bring to market. I mean, whether it's a tent keg or whether it's the gauges we used to make. I mean, there were literally a year before that stuff comes because of trial and error. And so for you to think that you're going to go out, one of the things is that we see like other people making like their cheaper kegs and stuff, and they don't think about all of the little things like what is the max psi of this hose, or is this hose rated to take the stuff that I'm putting through it? Is how's the hose material going to interact with the product that I'm putting through it? Is that particulate going to get onto my stuff? Like little stuff like that is like, I mean, this dude's thought of everything, and so you think that you're going to save $50 or one hundred
Mm-hmm.
dollars by getting it cheaper. That's like the worst economy I've ever heard in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you really want to be a parts manufacturer. If
Mm-hmm.
you really want to be a parts manufacturer, then by all means, build the better keg, build the better whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
Right, right. But like the same way you don't recommend somebody go buy your own tint and do it yourself. It's cheaper. The same way everybody doesn't paint their own house to figure out, let me figure out the ins and outs of painting. Or you go to move your house and you're like, I'm a mover. Are you a mover? Do you know how to wrap? You know what I mean? Are you going to find out by banging the shit on the side of your house and ruining something? That's how you figure it out. It's the same thing. If you're
Yeah.
tinting windows and your homemade keg blows up and you have, like how much, what does that do to your day? Like, it's not worth it. It's
No,
interesting
at all.
because you always see that person who's like, you're getting ripped off. You can buy this keg on eBay or Craigslist for like $40 and build it yourself. You can, you can do
Yeah,
everything.
I mean, by all means, like I would never tell you to not do. You like, I mean, if you're real ingenuitive and you want to save,
Sure.
go ahead. And what I have seen is there's some people that are like talented that become parts manufacturers.
Right. That's how they started in
Try
the
it.
first. That's where Tin Keg probably started, right? Like
Yeah, right.
that's how it
And I
starts.
think if that's you, and you know that that's you, and you don't like tinting windows anymore, and you want to be a parts manufacturer, okay, become the next Fusion tools by all means.
Hmm.
But I think that in the interim there's a whole lot of trash talk about this is a crap product, against a company that has spent all this time developing. Now there's tons of bad products that are brought to market by people that don't understand supply chain,
Sure.
don't understand supply and demand, don't understand. I mean, we deal with that all the time. I mean, we deal with there are a lot of sort of pipe dreams out there, and it is you have to sort of one of the jobs that I've sort of the roles that I've played is sort of nurturing some of these guys through and say like, look, here's the deal, because it's one thing to make five of something, it's another thing to make 5,000 a week of something. I mean, when we get these giant orders, it's people will order dozens of things or thousands of a single part number. What happens if you make this product and then I order 1,000 of them? Can you give me
Right.
1,000 of them like
Hmm.
tomorrow, or say a week is my lead time? And
Hmm.
if you can't answer that question, or if that question hurts your head, if you're like, oh my gosh,
Hmm.
because scalability is sort of like,
Everything. Yeah.
talked about this at the beginning, like you can only tint so many cars. Maybe you can tint 6 cars a day, but that's it. You're tenting 6 cars a day, and if you can teach someone else to tent and manage them and bring them in, and then you can tent, maybe 11 or 10 or 12 cars a day, and then put an exponent on that. All of a sudden, you're a businessman,
And you don't have
and
time to make your own keg. I'll tell you that.
you definitely don't have time to. It's funny that gets brought up, because we do get that a lot. I mean, I do see. I don't comment a lot on the tent forums because I think occasionally I do, but
Hmm.
because I think there's sort of a thing where it's like this is going to be whatever I can say to this. Am I going to add? Am I going to add to this conversation? Is there something that I'm gonna? Is there really a kernel of wisdom, or is there a kernel of hey, have you considered this? A lot of times it's already. I'll get on. The post has been made 15 minutes ago. There's 28 comments of like burn, 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 and I'm like, man,
I
I'm not
know.
touching that.
I know, and knowing like you having experience on forums, you know that like once you start, that can be like such a time suck. Like all
Oh
hours
yeah,
of the night, you're going to have long paragraphs, and they keep getting longer, and then you have to respond to every point that they made.
it's horrible.
Never
Matt
ending.
did it. Matt did it like a week ago, and I saw him. He commented on something, and I was like, oh man, here it goes. I'm like, Matt's night just became nursing this thread, because it's like at that point you're literally like it's almost like you volunteered to be on trial. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying, in a court, and then it's like, what say you? And it's like, oh
Hmm.
my gosh,
And then if you stop, it's like, well, where did you go?
yeah,
Must be.
he pushed out. He's such a pussy. It's like, oh my gosh, dude. Like, yeah. So a lot of times I don't, unless I have something valuable to add, or I understand something in a deeper way. And again, having not been, I've installed some flat glass, I've installed some paint protection film, I've installed some window tint. Um, I can do it. I understand the fundamentals of it. Would I ever say that I could do it as a job? I mean, I don't have the patience, honestly. I mean, I don't have the aptitude that I have is in a different level, and or in a different realm. I mean, I'm much more cerebral and get very impatient. And there's sort
Mhm.
of the best tenors. There's this sort of zen thing that happens that I am so envious of.
Like a
That
tint
when they
flow
get it,
state.
they're sliding the film around, and it's like,
Hmm.
and then it's like a dance, and I'm like
Hmm.
envious of that dance, and I can't do the dance.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that works. I relate to that 100%. And I feel like that to me has worked to my advantage. And the reason being is, you know, it, if you're a tinter who wants to run your business and not just be the tinter, if that's the case, which is just going to be for some people, then if your default is I'm going to do it myself, then you're not necessarily going to find the ways to get it done without you doing it yourself. And then what quickly happens is you're doing everything yourself, and that's the end of it. But being forced to or feeling forced to say, well, if those windows are going to get tinted, I have to find a tinter to do that. That forces you to run the business, but because it's very easy if you decide you'll do everything yourself to then get kind of overwhelmed, and then you don't have time to do anything but those things. So
Absolutely.
Well,
Do you tint every day?
no, I never tinted every day. I tinted very, 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 very little, and that was, from day one of like the flat glass business, it was we're gonna hire a tinter, and I we put an ad out on Craigslist. We found a tinter that we found it. I brought him in. I literally brought him, pointed him in front of a window, and I said, "Frost it." Then I looked at it and I said, "Perfect. We'll call you when we have a job for you." And that was the beginning of the business. And
Oh, that's awesome.
that
Yeah.
forced, that forced me to then say, when that tinter was busy, we'll get another tinter, and we'll get another tinter, and we'll get another tinter. Because if I said, "Well, I'll just go do it myself," then at the end of the day, that's what you probably end up doing. You
Hmm.
know.
Yeah.
So um, I think that's what I know that's what forced me into looking at it on a grander scale, because the other trap, and again, I want to keep emphasizing, only if you're a tinter saying, "I want to run the business and I don't want to be a tinter," because man, there's nothing wrong with just being a tinter. There's nothing wrong with it. There's a lot of pros to that, and one of the pros is you can put a lot of money in your pocket every day, very, I don't want to say
Yeah.
easily, but
There's way less risk.
you can put a lot, right, you can put a lot of money in your pocket, and if that's what you want to do, then that's the way to do it, because there is some transition between people who start off tinting the windows themselves to then becoming a business owner. It's that transition of seeing your profits disappear a lot of times. And you say, "Wow, I used to make 3 grand a week just tinting some cars. And now I'm running this business and I have a hard time making 3 grand a week, yet I have so much going on." I guess what I'm saying is you just have to understand where you want to be in the business, and do that, because you may enjoy, like you said, getting in that Zen state, tinting 5, 10 cars a day and putting $1,000 or 1,500 in your pocket every day. You may not want to manage other people and tint, other employees.
Which is totally fine. And I think
Mm-hmm.
tinting kind of to circle back to what I said at the beginning is you have been given the golden ticket. Like I don't have the propensity or the sort of the makeup to be a good tinter on a regular. And so,
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of in some ways I'm kind of bummed because like and I tell a lot of people this. Like there is if you can do like welding, like if you can become a really good welder, if you can become a really good tinter, if you can become a really good paint protection film installer, bro, you can go to work, put down film, like you said, maybe make a grand, or which a lot of people will never have the ability to do. I
Mm-mm.
mean, if you look at what medium household income is in this country and that sort of thing, I mean, bro, I mean, I think at the end of the day, you have to realize it's easy because, when you tent, yeah, you can make 50 grand really, really quick. A lot of people can't make 50 grand. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's like, just on that alone, just being the greatest tenor, and I know a couple really good tenors. This dude named Daniel out by you. This dude is a phenomenal tenor, and he's always in that Zen state, and he's got such a he's so great to be around. And I think like man, this dude is like he really the golden ticket is the only way to really say it because like all he has to do is go in, tent some cars, come home. Hey baby, I'm home. Like let's watch some Netflix, which whatever. I'm gonna take a couple weeks off. Let's go to the Riviera. Let's
Mm-hmm.
do whatever. And that's what I would totally encourage you. I mean, if you can do that and you're the kind of tenor that can churn out make all that money, save a lot of it because you aren't going to be able to be that good forever.
Sure.
Decide on a good strategy for expenditure, savings, travel, those sorts of things,
Mm-hmm.
and live. You can live such an amazing life just being a tenor.
Mm-hmm.
Now, certainly, starting your own thing, it's the long game. It's the I mean, you could start a tent YouTube channel on how to, but it's a long game. There's 3 or 4 years
Right.
of build up, 5 years of build up, 6 years, and it's like, do you have what it takes to not make that money that you could be making just slapping film? Because as a business owner in the winter months and in also, I mean, who knows? Like even this COVID thing is a great example. I mean, as a business owner, you never know when who knows what someone sues you or some all kinds of crazy stuff can happen,
Mm-hmm.
and then all of a sudden you're making 3 grand a month or no grand a month I mean, you can make no grand a month. I promise
Hmm.
you.
Oh yeah,
Your printer starts blowing through film.
there's a lot
All
of
of a sudden,
big
you
successful
just paid
businesses.
15.
Yeah. There's a lot of big successful businesses that, there's a lot of things I know, like speaking from experience, you put a lot of things as a business owner, there is points where you have to put a lot of things in place and you're saying, hey, yeah, we have this big rental, but we need the space and we're going to grow into it. Or, hey, we have to buy this equipment, but we're going to, so what that leads, those are investments into your future, but that comes out of your pocket today. So you definitely can have, like, I think a lot of people would be surprised with the grass is greener. Like if you could see the numbers of a lot of the bigger businesses, I think a lot of times you'd go, oh, that's not what I thought it was. I thought they were making money hand over fist. And it's not necessarily the case.
Most businesses I know, it depends on how your business is set up, but like honestly, I really don't know too many people that own true small businesses. So businesses that have like 30 or less people employed. I don't know a ton of those dudes that are just swimming in money. I
Right.
think you can sometimes tap into a stream and all of a sudden, you got a great marketing strategy and everything kind of hits on all the cylinders. All of a sudden there's that windfall. Okay, maybe you made $400,000 this year, but you made no $100,000 last year, and you made maybe less than the year before. And I think the envy bug is very easy to sort of look at someone who's particularly our age, so someone who's in their late 30s or whatever, or even in their late 20s, who's had a very productive 10 or 15 years, and they've got a new car, their wife's not sweating how the house payment's going to get made, their kids in a private school. All of a sudden it's like, oh dude, this guy's got stupid money. Well, you know what I mean? Like you didn't see the ramen years. You know what I'm saying? You didn't see and
Yep.
as an entrepreneur, I think the one thing that like, Bo or any of the people that we've mentioned now, like, I mean, if I had to eat ramen next week because of something I believed in, I'm eating ramen,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And I think if you don't have that and
Mm-hmm.
you just got to have the money, okay, then be happy. You're a tenor. You can make that money, do great tent every day, and don't ever try to be a business owner because it can suck.
Mm-hmm.
The ability for it to suck is far greater than if you're just doing a job and you're okay with that money. But being okay with that money means, if you have a great month and you bring in 20 25 grand in a month, you can't start living on 25 grand a month. You can't go out and get, you can't go lease, a $5,000 a month car. Like
Right.
I've seen a ton of people do stupid stuff like that. And it's like all of a sudden you can't make $25,000 consistently every month slapping film. Or maybe you can, but even if you can, if you're spending it every month, it's a sad, sad situation because eventually if you get sick or you just decide, you know what, slapping film sucks, real jobs, and or being an entrepreneur, like there's a lot of times where it's like it's the grass is very much greener on
Yeah.
the employee side sometimes.
Yep. Yep. I think like we saw that kind of with the whole COVID thing, like where, I think a lot of employees felt like, man, like I'm getting the shit end of the deal because maybe I'm being let go or there's no work or whatever it is. And thinking like, well, the business owners are the ones in control. And as business owners, you're going, well, my employees can go work somebody else somewhere else, but I'm taking on the burden of like the overhead and the bigger issues and so on. So it's one of those things. The grass isn't greener. It's like what's the right fit for you because the grass can be green or brown on both sides. Like
Yeah.
it's what you make of it.
Yeah, if you don't pay the $6,000 rent bill, it's easy to sort of think that, you see, you know, 15 or 20 grand of work, coming through and you're like, man, just I just did 20 grand in jobs, blah, blah, blah. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, a lot of times, particularly at the beginning of the month, all those grands are spoken for.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's definitely something. And I think it's important as an employee or as a tenor to realize this. When we interview tenors, I will say this: tenors, more than detailers, more than mechanics, more than anybody else I've ever met or known, has this sort of I don't know, like crazy assumption that they should be able to walk away with this huge percentage of everything that they tent, but they're in your 20,000 square foot building, or they're using, your tools, or they're using your electric, or all that stuff, or you're providing all the film.
Hmm.
And it's kind of like you would never, as a mechanic, there's no mechanics don't get paid that way. There's no other job really where you can be the kind of prima donna that I've met some real prima donna tenors,
Hmm.
and it's kind of crazy because it's like, yo, the reality check is that business is not as easy as you think it is on a lot of different levels. Now, again, if you start tinting and all of a sudden your single stall tent, maximize that single stall tent. I mean, add some detail stuff to that and watch yourself. If you can, you can easily make $700,000 out of that and manage what the cost is, and maybe then grow that the next year to 650 and 700 and 800 and 900, and grade that, and never go to a bigger facility and never sort of take on all that more risk. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to do that, but like, I think in order to do that, you can't be a prima donna, and you have to be able to say, "Hey, Eric, here's what I'm thinking. I just had my first really kick butt month. Tell me what give me," and talk to 5 or 10 people that you trust and try to get the truth, because the truth a lot of times, I think tenors talk to other tenors more than they talk to sort of people that they really, business owners or whatever. And it's easy to be like, yeah, man, I got screwed at this job, and I got screwed out of, we just tinted this whole, complex, and I only walked with $15,000. And it's like, as the guy who booked that job, I'm like, dang, I can't believe you walked with $15,000,
Hmm.
because like I'm walking with three, because a
Hmm.
lot of times that's how it is as the business owner. But it's just hard, and I think you got to really, you can't get caught. Again, what we're kind of talking about here is positivity versus negativity, and realism versus sort of fairy tale. It's very good to be positive and a realist in any job.
Yep.
So
And you always have the opportunity to do it yourself, do it better, do it different, do whatever you imagine. If you're out there and you're working at a tin shop, you don't like how things are going, you have the opportunity to go find a better tin shop. You have the opportunity to open your own tin shop. That's that. So that's the beauty.
absolutely. Absolutely, and I do hope for some of those guys that have left our shop, or have left other shops, and we've seen. I always hope that some, they've been a real reality check, and they've hit the ground and been like, "Dang, I just walked on like the best thing," and then for others it has been good, where they it wasn't the right fit, or they've it's pushed them to sort of realize what their true potential was, and I always hope for the best for anyone there.
Sure.
I mean, so I think that life is really what you make it. I mean, I'm not saying there's not opposition and there's not hurdles. We all have, whether it's financial or medical or even, socioeconomic or family or all that stuff. But a lot of that stuff we create for ourselves. I mean, we don't really realize that, but I think the more that you own the fact that, your reality is your reality, if you're tired of looking at the grass is greener on the other side, it's time to reseed your lawn.
Well said. Well said. Tim, we're approaching 2 hours. I'll let you enjoy your evening. I appreciate you doing this. I thoroughly enjoyed chatting with you.
Hey, Eric, we'll hang soon. Hopefully, maybe at SEMA, or I don't
Hmm.
know if there's going to be meetings anymore, but
Hope.
it'd be great to hang in person. But thanks so much for having me on.
Hey, thanks for doing it. I really appreciate it. And Patrick left a comment real quick. Patrick Fransco, he said we want more videos, Tim, and I agree. We want more videos, Tim.
Oh, thanks, Patrick.
All right,
All right,
everyone.
we'll see you. We'll talk to you soon.
Have a
Take
great
care.
night. Thanks again, Tim.
Bye bye.
Bye.